So, is it true that the Chinese never invaded the Philippines? Let's find out! Mabuhay or in Kapampangan, luwid kayo. Welcome back to my channel. It's me, Kirby, your friendly Pinoy historian. And if you are new to my channel, in this channel, I make videos about our people's history, culture, and everything in between. So don't forget to like, share this video, comment down below, and please subscribe. So for today's video, we'll be talking about one of my most requested topics of all time. We'll be digging deeper into the Chinese invasion of the Philippines by the pirate king Limahong. So first, we will look at what happened during this invasion. And then, we will dig deeper into what most history textbooks don't really tell us about this invasion. And what happened beyond the tales of the battles. Like what led to this battle and what happened after. So first, what exactly happened during this bloody invasion? So according to the sources, this invasion of Luzon was commanded by a Chinese outlaw named Limahong or Limahon. The Spaniards believed that Limahong wanted to establish his own kingdom in Luzon. Limahong commanded a pirate fleet of somewhere between 62 to 70 war junks. A junk is basically a type of Chinese sailing ships. And actually, fun fact, the southern junk that East Asian merchants used in the maritime trade of Asia for centuries was actually developed and adopted from the ship designs of our own Austronesian ancestors. So back to Limahong. Limahong and his 70 ships entered Manila Bay on November 29, 1574. It was said that this fleet carried 2,000 soldiers, 2,000 seafarers, and 1,500 women, countless artisans, farmers, and enormous supplies, with the intention of creating their own kingdom in the Philippines. So the first attack on the city of Manila was led by Limahong's Japanese lieutenant or assistant named Shoko. And Limahong was confident of their victory, so he sent Shoko first to lead 600 to 700 pirate soldiers to launch the attack on Manila, which by this time was already the colonial capital of Spanish Philippines. So they attacked Manila on the morning of November 30th, and they ravaged and besieged the outskirts of Manila, particularly what are now the cities of Parañaque and Pasay. And it was during this intensive battle that the veteran conquistador Martin de Goiti was killed. Martin de Goiti, for those who may not know, was the conquistador credited for the Spanish conquest and the burning of Manila back in 1570. And you can learn more about this in my older video, Who Really Burned Down Ancient Manila, both in English and in Tagalog. Or you can also read more about it in my books. But anyways, back to the Battle of Manila in 1574. Despite the tragic death of Conquistador Martin de Goiti, the combined efforts of the Spaniards and the Luzones warriors was able to resist the initial attack, and this bought Manila more time to gather reinforcements. Limahong's forces tried to attack again a day or so later, but this time they were faced by a much bigger multi-ethnic army of both the native Luzones warriors, Mexican soldiers, and Spanish conquistadors, led by the young conquistador Juan de Salcedo. And more reinforcements from the Visayas were also on their way. Another important figure in these battles was a native leader named Galo, who rallied his people in fighting back against the pirate invaders. He would later earn the Spanish title Don in recognition of his heroism in defending Manila from the pirates. And today, there is a district in Parañaque called Don Galo with a monument dedicated to the local hero. So although Limahong successfully breached the walls of Manila and pillaged the surrounding communities, their attempt at conquering Manila proved to be too difficult to accomplish. Hundreds of Limahong's own forces died in battle, and this convinced him to retreat. Limahong and the remainder of his forces retreated north to Pangasinan, where they fortified themselves and established their own community. It was said that the pirates established at least 2 forts and seized control of the nearby villages in December of 1574. But it was not until the end of March 1575 that the Spaniards and the Luzones warriors aboard 59 ships went to Pangasinan to besiege Limahong's fortified base. So about 250 Spaniards and around 2,500 1500, Luzones warriors laid siege on the pirate forts. But despite the odds, the pirate king Limahong refused to surrender. The siege lasted for about 4 months. Salcedo and the Luzones warriors led by Lacandula of Tondo successfully burned 35 of Limahong's ships and captured hundreds of his people. But unknown to them, Limahong ordered the building of 30 improvised ships and the digging of a hidden channel towards the sea. This was happening while negotiations were still ongoing with the Spaniards. And then in August of 1575, Limahong and his forces fought their way out to escape. It was said that Limahong sacrificed hundreds of his own people to stage his own exit to safety. Now this is usually where the story ends. But of course, in this channel we dig deeper. So let's dig deeper. What was really happening beyond these battles? So, who was Limahong? Was he really this evil pirate king? Limahong, aka Lin Fang, was one of the most powerful leaders of the infamous Wako or Woku pirates that operated and pillaged in the waters of East and Southeast Asia. Despite often being referred to as Japanese, the Wako pirates were actually multi-ethnic, made up of Japanese, Chinese, Koreans, and even natives from Southeast Asia, including the Philippines. And by 1573, Limahong defeated his rival, the pirate warlord Lin Daoqian, aka Vin Daoqian, and captured over 50 of Lin Daoqian's warships. Limahong then became the most powerful leader of the Wako pirates in Asia. And just like Lin Daoqian, Limahong was also being pursued by the Ming dynasty, and he was driven out of the southern coast of China by 1571. And this is actually what led to Limahong's invasion of Manila in 1574. But unknown to many, 1574 was actually not the first time that Limahong established a base in the Philippines. But more on this later in this video, so please keep watching. As mentioned in my video about the battles of Cagayan, this was not the first time nor the only time that the Wako pirates were active in the Philippines. So why the Philippines? Why were all these pirates lured into the Philippines? What do they want from Luzon? So the Wako pirates have been around since the 13th century, raiding the different parts and coastal communities of East Asia and then later on expanding into Southeast Asia. But they didn't become a big problem until the 1500s. So a lot of people, including Filipinos, are not aware that the Philippines was once an important part of this vast and well-established maritime trading network linking Southeast Asia, China, Japan, India, the Arab world, and Africa. In fact, as mentioned in my other videos, from the 1400s to the 1500s, the Kingdom of Luzon, centered in what is now Manila Bay and extending from central Luzon to southern Luzon, once held the monopoly of maritime trade with China. The Luzones were the only ones who had access to the much beloved and highly demanded commodities from China. Actually, part of the reason behind this monopoly were the pirates themselves. So one of the big reasons why the mighty Ming dynasty of China imposed a ban on maritime trade was actually to put a stop to the Wako pirates. But we'll talk more about this later. So China during this time officially banned sea trade or maritime trade with the rest of the world, except for the Kingdom of Luzon. And the Luzones themselves were often mistaken as Chinese in other parts of the world. Because of this lucrative monopoly, this meant that Manila Bay was among the most important and most strategic trading hubs of the world. In fact, this was the same exact reason why the Spaniards were eager to conquer Manila, because they wanted not only to be part of this wealthy, prosperous trade network, but to also control the hub in Manila. So, if we think about it, Limahong's aspirations in capturing Manila were basically the same ones that motivated the Spaniards in conquering the fabled walled city and the pre-colonial kingdoms of the Philippines since the 1500s. So if this invasion was led by pirates, then what was the mighty Ming dynasty of China doing? The Ming Dynasty of China, once the most powerful empire on earth, was eager to put a stop to the rampant raiding of the Wakō pirates, especially beginning in the 1550s when piracy was so widespread that it severely disrupted regular trade throughout East and Southeast Asia. So the mighty navy of the Ming Dynasty was unleashed to crack down and drive out the pirates. And they were initially successful. But after the pirates were kicked out of China and Taiwan, they did not really stop their raids. They simply moved their bases elsewhere. During this time, there were two major leaders of the Wakō pirates, Lin Daoqian and Limahong, and both of them established a base in northern Luzon. First was Lin Daoqian in the late 1560s, before the Spanish conquest of Luzon. Lin Daoqian moved to a base somewhere in northern Luzon, in a place called Daimao, which many believe to be Pangasinan. But in the early 1570s, Lin Daoqian was soon driven out of Luzon, and by 1578, he established a new base in Patani, in what is now southern Thailand. So next was Limahong. After he was kicked out of the Chinese coast in 1571, Limahong actually escaped to Luzon, and he established a fortified base in what is now Pangasinan, most likely in the same port area known as Daimao, which many identify as Lingayen, Pangasinan. And many believe that Limahong and Lin Daoqian were actually together in Pangasinan back in 1571, before fighting and splitting in 1573. And so the Ming Dynasty sent envoys to Luzon, led by the legendary Chinese general and governor of Fujian province, Liu Yaohui. They were sent to ask for the help of the king of Luzon in cracking down the notorious warlords and the Wakō pirates. And this joint military expedition was led by the forces of the king of Luzon, presumably by my direct ancestor Raja Matanda or by his brother Lakandula, with the support from their ally the Ming Dynasty. It was celebrated as a victorious war against the pirates, where the Wakō pirates suffered a major defeat. The same thing would happen again in 1575, when Limahong was finally driven out of Pangasinan. So in 1575, when the Spanish conquistadors and Luzones warriors laid siege on Limahong's fortresses in Pangasinan, what is often absent from the Spanish accounts and the mainstream narrative was the presence of the Chinese Navy out in the open sea nearby, on standby, ready to assist their Luzones allies in pursuing the pirates. So either they were unaware of the political changes in Luzon, or that the Ming Dynasty simply did not care about the Spanish rule in the Philippines. It would seem that China still officially recognized the sovereignty of the King of Luzon and the independence of the Kingdom of Luzon, because the Ming Dynasty of China once again sought the help of the King of Luzon against Limahong in 1575, despite Luzon being officially a colony of Spain during this time. And this leads us to the next part of the video. So what were the Lakans of Luzon or the Rajas of Luzon doing when, Limahong invaded Manila in 1574? So this period was actually a chaotic chapter in Luzon's history during a crucial transition when Spanish colonialism in Luzon was only about 3 years old, when Luzon was not yet fully consolidated under Spanish rule. In fact, earlier in 1574, the paramount kings of Luzon, Lakandula of Tondo and his nephew Raja Sulaiman of Maynila, took up arms against the Spaniards. And I'm not gonna go too much into detail about this uprising, because this should be a future video of its own. But long story short, the revolt of Lakandula and Sulaiman only ended because of the news of the impending Chinese invasion of Manila. And this is actually where history gets more complicated and more interesting. So in 1574, Lakandula and Raja Sulaiman led the Luzones in an uprising against the Spaniards. But when the news of Limahong's invasion invasion reached Manila, the Spaniards were quick to negotiate peace with Lacandula because they needed and they were eager to secure Lacandula's support in fending off the pirates. In fact, without the warriors led by Lacandula and his sons, Manila would have easily fallen to the pirates in 1574. But while Lacandula of Tondo aided the Spaniards against Limahong, his nephew, Raja Sulaiman of Maynila, actually wanted to take advantage of the chaos brought by the invasion. He wanted to use this to finally get rid of the Spaniards in Luzon. So there were actually rumors that the royal family of Luzon was secretly communicating with Limahong. And so the Spaniards suspected some sort of a conspiracy to unfold, but this was never proven. But what we know for sure was that Raja Sulaiman reached out to their cousins in Borneo. The Sultan of Brunei during this time, Sultan Saiful Rizal, was actually the cousin of the paramount kings of Luzon, Raja Matanda and Lacandula, and their brother, Raja Sulaiman's own father. So naturally, the young Raja Sulaiman sought the aid of his uncle, the Sultan. So unknown to many, Sultan Saiful Rizal actually prepared for the invasion. But for some reason, either delayed by the storms or by internal politics in Brunei, the mighty armada of the Sultan, carrying 7,000 warriors, never reached Manila. Instead, it was Limahong's pirate fleet that showed up banging on the walls of Manila. And sadly, in the middle of this panic and bloody invasion, Raja Sulaiman's own son and heir, Raja Bago, along with his cousin, Datu Lumanlan, were executed by the Spaniards. The young Raja and Datu were arrested and accused of conspiracy with Brunei to overthrow the Spaniards. But before the trial even started, their lifeless bodies were found in their jail cell with their heads cut off. But this tragic end to the young Raja and Datu did not stop the Lakans of Luzon in continuing their goal to liberate their kingdom from Spanish colonialism. And we can talk more about this in future videos, or you can read more about it in my books. Like this one. Ay, nahulog. Baliktad. Like this one. Know Our Roots #1, Tondo, Slavery and the Revolt of the Lakans. So check out the links below to learn more. Now back to our topic. Back to Limahong's invasion. So in 1575, several months after the death of Raja Bago, Lacandula was somehow able to convince Raja Sulaiman to join their military expedition with the Spaniards against Limahong's fortresses in Pangasinan. And just like in 1571 and 1574, the Luzones warriors were instrumental in defeating Limahong and the Wako pirates. But of course, officially on paper, the credit went to the Spaniards. It is also worth noting that by 1575, the old king, Raja Matanda, was already dead. So perhaps the sovereign king of Luzon that the Ming emperor recognized and asked aid from was either Lacandula of Tondo, the younger brother of Raja Matanda, or their nephew, Raja Sulaiman of Maynila, the crown prince and designated heir of Raja Matanda. And according to Kapampangan oral traditions, Lacandula himself married a princess from China as one of his wives. And some scholars say that this princess was actually the sister of the Chinese governor. So perhaps this played a part in convincing Lacandula to go after Limahong. So now, let's talk about what happened in Pangasinan and Ilocos. So apart from the Spanish accounts and the colonial perspectives, not much is written about Pangasinan and their connection to Limahong. But Pangasinan had long been an important stop not just for the pirates but also for the Chinese merchants. It appeared in Chinese records as early as 1406. And as mentioned earlier, Wako pirates led by Lindao Qian and Limahong made their presence in Pangasinan as early as the 1560s. So unknown to many, the people of what is now Lingayen, Pangasinan welcomed Limahong in 1574, not just as a refugee, but they also accepted him as their ruler. This was because the people of Pangasinan had already been suffering under the abuses and the exploitation of the Spaniards. In fact, it was recorded that the Spanish expedition to colonize Pangasinan and the Ilocos region were far more devastating than Limahong's own invasion. Towns and villages across Pangasinan and Ilocos were decimated. Thousands were killed by Spanish conquistadors. The people of Pangasinan and the Ilocos region of this time suffered more death and oppression under the Spaniards than the Wako pirates. So they saw Limahong's arrival as an opportunity to finally get rid of the Spaniards and free themselves from colonialism. It was also said that Limahong himself married a local princess, Kabontatala of Dumalandan, Pangasinan. They got married to cement their union with the local rulers. In fact, it was Kabontatala and her people who helped Limahong dig the channel that led to their escape in 1575. So what happened to Limahong after escaping in 1575? So after escaping from Pangasinan, Limahong and his remaining forces first fled to Guangdong in China and then later on moved to Taiwan. Ming Dynasty records also indicate that Limahong and about 2,000 Wako pirates officially surrendered to the Ming Dynasty. But this surrender did not last long. By 1589, Limahong joined forces with other Wako pirates and warlords Li Mao and Chendele to pillage the southern coast of China. And this was the last time that Limahong's name appeared in historical records. But this will not be the last time that a Chinese pirate king would attempt to invade the Philippines. So let me know if you want to learn more about the pirate king Koxinga and his mission to conquer our islands back in the 1600s. And as we can see, there's so many sides and different perspectives in this history. And we can certainly learn a lot from this. For example, the invasion of Limahong resulted in the first official diplomatic relations between the Chinese and Spain. And more importantly, the joint military expedition between China and Luzon long before the arrival of the Spaniards shows us that ancient China once respected the sovereignty of our islands and the freedom of our people. That even after Luzon fell to Spain, the Emperor of China still respected and recognized our indigenous kings. From Lusong or Luzon to Sulu and the ancient kingdoms of Mai and Butuan, the mighty Chinese Empire was more of a friendly ally to our ancestors. There was no interference to our sovereignty. For example, despite Luzon being a much smaller kingdom, our ancestors stood side by side with their Chinese allies. In fact, they even followed our lead. So in short, they respected us. And if we think about it, this is definitely in contrast with the geopolitics of Southeast Asia today. So for those who are interested, stay tuned for more videos about the forgotten pre-colonial history and deeper connections between the Philippines, Southeast Asia, and the rest of the world. And I guess that is it for me today. So, as always, let me know what you think about this topic. What lessons can we learn from this? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to know what you think. So if you like this video or learn a thing or two, don't forget to like this video and share this video to a lot more people so more people can learn more about our people's history and culture. And please subscribe and make sure to hit that bell icon so you don't miss out on my future videos. But of course, before we go, today's shoutout goes to Raymond Cruz from Lingayen, Pangasinan, Hansel Huistra from Indonesia, Tito Eli from LA, and special thanks and shoutout to Raf Lomotan of the Philippines. Maraming salamat for your amazing artwork depicting Limahong's invasion. And actually, check out the links below for Raf's incredible artwork depicting our people's histories. And of course, a very special thanks and shout out to my patron Andre from Canada. Maraming salamat to all my patrons for all your love and support throughout these years. And for those who want to help me make more videos like this, show your support and please be my patron, or you can also get a copy of any of my books or coloring books or any of the merch linked down below. And all of my books will be on sale this holiday season. So follow me on social media or visit my website to learn more. Maraming salamat po. Terima kasih, magsukod, daghang salamat, dakal pong salamat. See you next time. We're in Tagalog, kita kits, and in Kapampangan, Mikitix, Y en español, nos vemos.